What's up, guys? I wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming game from NASCAR Heat 3 or whatever it's going to be called. But basically, one aspect in particular that I think is really important, and I'm not sure if they're going to address it yet or anything like that. But before I get into that, I do want to mention something. I had planned to start dropping songs from time to time on the channel, just maybe once or twice a month. Just drop a song, something from my library of music, the type of stuff I listen to, just as something for you guys to listen to check out, stuff that I think very few people have either heard before, or even stuff you've heard before if you're closer to my age range, but probably just never really gave it a good listen to. So I was going to do that from time to time just for fun, and I was really looking forward to that. I did drop one video, and then I was going to do another one, and I attempted to put a song on the channel, and I was immediately hit with a copyright I guess violation, and it was blocked. So unfortunately, I don't think it's a good idea for me to do that anymore. I'm really bummed out about it because I was looking forward to it. It was something I really enjoyed, or I know I would. And it's not worth it because I could end up getting my channel shut down or whatever. YouTube's copyright algorithms, they're very strict. Just anything you post, if it even has the tiniest sliver of something that belongs to somebody, it could be bad news for you. So unfortunately, you know what, it's just not worth it. So I'm not going to be able to do it. So yeah, it's a bummer for me. Unfortunately, it is what it is. So I'm just going to forget about that and move on from there. So getting back to the topic at hand, and basically I wanted to talk about one of the biggest things that have been missing for NASCAR games. I mean, even going back to the old days with the games that we did enjoy. And it's something that I think is one of the most overlooked parts of a NASCAR game, and it's never really been addressed. And I think it's one of the reasons why these games do feel empty and bare bones, and there's a lack of depth. And that is just the car setups, right? Everything that happens before the race. I've talked about this before. Some of this is going to be very familiar to you guys who have watched my past videos, but I wanted to talk about it some more because we don't really know when this next game is due to come out. Now, a lot of people are assuming it's going to be September, maybe October, around that time frame. So there's not a lot of time left, right? So I'm putting this out there just in case, maybe, who knows, somebody at 704 can see it, or maybe they are addressing it. I doubt it, but you never know. And even if it's not something that can be done now, maybe for the next game or something, but I really think it's important that these guys start looking at all the pre-race and post-race stuff. What happens back at the race shop, the race weekend. As you guys know, it involves a lot more than just the race. There's practice and all the things that come beforehand to prepare for the race, right? There's a lot of preparation that goes in. There's a lot of working on these car setups, right? These cars don't come off the truck just raring to go. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And I really think that's something that developers have really dropped the ball on. And like I said, even going back to the best NASCAR games, they never really did this part of the game well, or they didn't really try. most of these games, they give you the tools to make adjustments, right? You know, and if you know what you're doing, you know, it's not that difficult. But the problem is that when you take into account the entire audience, or I should say the consumers that buy these games, very few of those people, or I should say the very small percentage, truly understand how to set up race cars. You know, a lot of us are fans, but we're not adept mechanically enough to really fully understand it. Now, there are ways to find out and learn. There are some really good videos. Jeff Fabiano, he's put out videos, very good, very informative, and it goes and explains what every single thing on the car does, the springs, the shocks, all this stuff, and it tells you what it does and all that stuff. But in all honesty, I think one that takes a lot of the fun out of what could potentially be something really deep and immersive in the game. And it's something I've talked about, you know, I've brought up I'm going to bring it up again, but a way that somehow the game guides you through this entire process and make it fun. And I think developers have always missed that. It's like they don't understand that the game needs to be more than just about the race. It's about everything that happens throughout the week to prepare these cars and get them to the racetrack and work on them. And there's so much that goes into it. And they're missing that. And I think that if they focused on that and actually brought that into the game experience in a way that's entertaining, and casual fans or even fans like myself, you know, I find it to be a chore and just tedious to try to figure out these setups. Even if you go online or you read up on it, yeah, you can eventually learn this stuff, but that's work. You know, video games shouldn't be that much work. And you're kind of left to your own devices, or just do what most people do, is just go online and get a setup from somebody and then hope that it works for you. To me, that takes away any sense of accomplishment. There's a real disconnect, you know, between the player and the game and doing this. It's like there's such a big opportunity there to get you immersed in the game and into the sport of NASCAR. And if you make it fun, if you make it interesting, and a simple way to guide the player through all this, right? It would add so much depth to the career mode, to the game overall. I would love to spend time in practice, but the way it is now, it's a lot of hit and miss. You're just making all kinds of changes. You don't really understand what you're doing. And even if you look it up and read up on it, it's hard to retain all this stuff. Now, there are a handful of people out there who really know this thing like the back of their hand. And for those people, they don't care because they know this stuff. And it's easy for them. But when you develop these games, you got to keep in mind that the vast majority of your audience doesn't understand this aspect of the game. And it's a vital part of the game. And I've come up with ideas like what I called an automatic crew chief or an AI crew chief that kind of guides you through the game. Like other sports games, you have an agent or somebody, a coach, that's part of your career. And they kind of help guide you along your career. And I think it's a natural fit if you designed a game with a crew chief who is there for you and guides you through the race week and works with you to come up with setups, right? Whether it's asking you questions and based off of that making suggestions on how to adjust the car, which is a system that Project Cars 2 has now. And they call it the engineer. Now, it doesn't go super deep and into the adjustments. It's kind of an entry-level type of thing, but it does help. And I think if you took that deeper that would make these games so much better. And think of how much fun it would be to just focus on other things, like, you know, how these cars are put together back at the race shop. Be a little more involved with that. And race weekend, when you take the car off the truck and go out and practice, and to be able to drive back to the garage and then have that interaction with the crew chief to work on these cars. And not only would that be entertaining, it would be educational. Yeah, did I say that right? It would be you would learn from it. So that's, I think, one of the biggest holes in NASCAR game development. It's as if no developer ever even considers that as something that needs to be addressed or worked on. And it really is important. And if we keep thinking of ways to how can you make a NASCAR game deep and immersive, and 704 knows, because that's what they're saying. They're saying, you know, we're working to make the game deeper and more in depth. So this is how you do it. You gotta make the game interesting between races. Not just make it about show up to the race, and then go to the next race. So spend more time on that, focus on that, especially setting up these cars, because you gotta remember, especially since you do develop these games with casual players in mind. I mean, that's just the way it is. I know a lot of people want to see a simulator. We're not going to see a simulator. It's not going to happen. And there's several reasons for that. But first and foremost, you would be alienating casual fans. If it's too much of a simulator, something that a casual fan just can't get into because it's just too over their head, it's too hard, then you're cutting out a huge part of your fan base, and it's not good for sales. So it's not going to happen, you know. And there are things I'd like to see, but you have to know where to draw the line. And we can ask for the moon and the stars, but there's a point where you have to think, you know, smart in terms of business. So what I'm talking about now is something that is for everyone. This would make the game more interesting, more deeper, more immersive for everyone. Whether you are a hardcore NASCAR guy or a casual guy, you know, it would be fun, you know. And of course we need the paint booth and all this stuff, and you got to make the race shop, you know, integrated with all that, and working building cars and what's involved with all that. And I think if 704 can work on that and make it a part of your career mode, and have like your crew chief guide you through all of it, that alone would elevate the entire series beyond anything we've ever seen. Because even the best games we've had that we all love, like the Thunder series or Dirt to Daytona, we've never had that. You know, it's like, as good as those games were, you were still left out on your own. Now, there was one Eutechnics game I remember where when you were at the setup page, every item you kind of highlighted, it would give you a brief explanation of what it would do to the race car. And that was a small step, but it was better than nothing. But then they took it away. So if you've been watching my videos way back when Eutechnics, when I was talking about them, you would know that that was something I really got pissed off about, because I said, how could you take that out? It was, now people are left with no understanding, you know, unless you're one of these handful of people who really understand this stuff. That's not the way the casual gamer, that's not the category they fall into. I don't consider myself a casual NASCAR guy. I'm pretty hardcore. I love this stuff. But even I can't figure out these setups. Now, if I really focused and took the time to go study it, watch a dozen videos on it, it would take a while, but I would start to retain it. But it's a chore. That's a lot of work. That's not what games are supposed to be about. And you got to remember that at the end of the day, these are video games. They should be fun. So there is a way to make the game fun and immersive. And it's not a chore. And it doesn't feel like work. It's just kind of part of the game. Not a natural progression through the game. And how much fun would it be to finally just spend time in practice and literally feel and see how the car is improving and how you're getting a comfortable setup that works for you. And I really think that 704 needs to start thinking in that direction. That's how you give the career mode depth. That's how you give the game overall depth. And at the end of the day, I promise, you would feel a much bigger sense of accomplishment when you finish a race. If you win a race or get a good top 5 finish, you feel a bigger sense of accomplishment because you went through the whole process of working on that race car through the weekend with your crew chief. And that adds to the presentation of the game, which that it sorely needs. So there's not a lot of time left in the development of this game, regardless of when it comes out. But I'm hoping that 704 is looking in that direction, or maybe even started with this next game. But I have to assume that they didn't, because most of the things I've been talking about have been ignored. But just in case somebody at 704 happens to see this video, or maybe you guys can, as always, help out by forwarding it to 704, even if it doesn't affect this game, if it's there for the future. This is something that's really important, and it really would add a lot of depth to the game. And it's 2018. It's time that we finally evolve, and this should be a part of any NASCAR game going forward. So, you never know. Somebody may look at this and say, hey, we can do this. We can work on something like this, and this makes sense. As these games have always been, even the ones that we remember fondly, you're kind of left on your own. And that leaves a lot of people, not just casual gamers, but even hardcore fans like myself. It's a lot to retain. To understand how to set up a race car properly is a lot of work. But you can use that to your advantage. And if you can make these games where the game guides you through all of this in a fun and immersive way, that's a huge bump for you guys or any NASCAR game developer, because that's something that we haven't seen in any NASCAR game, and that's innovative. But it's high time, we're at that place. So I really want to see NASCAR games go in that direction. And remember that, yeah, you got to work on all the off-track stuff and fleshing that out, because that's what's really hurting this franchise. So I really look forward to seeing what this next game's going to have. And you never know, maybe they have started to go in that direction. I don't know. But I have to assume that that's not something that anybody's pushed towards at 704. But I hope somebody takes the time to hear me out, listen to this stuff, and take it in, because I truly believe that's really what you need for this franchise to move forward. And I think everyone could enjoy that. And it's such a disconnect right now when it comes to that stuff, because setting up these race cars, working on them through the weekend, it has to be more about than just race day. It's got to be about the whole week. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I put this video out. I've talked about this, the AI crew chief and stuff like that in the past. But I don't know when this next game's coming out. And I I have to assume they're already deep in development, and it's probably too late to do something like that in this type of game. It sounds like it does require some work. So I don't want to wait too long, because the sooner that maybe somebody listens and then it gets the ball rolling, and who knows, But those are my thoughts on that. I want to know what you guys think, and I look forward to your comments, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks we get the big announcement, and I hope there's a lot of detail in the announcement about the next game. So I'll see you guys around.